The bustling Los Angeles streets buzzed with energy as the golden California sun painted the sky in hues of amber and rose. Amidst the chaos of the city, a small McDonald's stood as an oasis of normalcy, its familiar golden arches a beacon to those seeking a moment of respite. Inside, the aroma of fries and burgers mingled with the soft chatter of patrons, creating a cocoon of comfort away from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. It was in this unlikely setting that fate decided to play its hand. Robert Downey Jr., fresh from a charity event and seeking solitude, found himself drawn to the restaurant's promise of anonymity. Clad in a simple black t-shirt and sunglasses, he blended seamlessly with the crowd, his celebrity status momentarily forgotten as he savored the simple pleasure of a fast food meal. As Robert settled into a secluded corner, his eyes were drawn to a small boy with tousled blonde hair clutching a broken toy car. The child's faded blue shirt and wide, apprehensive eyes told a story of their own, one that tugged at Robert's heartstrings. Beside the boy sat a tall, imposing man whose rigid posture and sharp gaze contrasted starkly with the child's vulnerability. The air seemed to crackle with an unseen tension, a silent battle of wills playing out between the man and the boy. Robert found himself unable to look away, his instincts telling him that something was amiss in this tableau of supposed familial normalcy. Little did he know that this chance encounter would set in motion a series of events that would change lives forever. As Robert observed the odd pair, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The man's steely gaze never left the boy, his disapproval evident in every subtle gesture and pursed lip. The child, in turn, seemed to shrink under the weight of that constant scrutiny, his small hands fidgeting nervously with his broken toy car. Suddenly, as if gathering every ounce of courage in his tiny frame, the boy slid from his seat and approached Robert. The actor leaned in, his curiosity piqued by the child's determined yet fearful expression. In a whisper so soft it was barely audible, the boy spoke words that sent a chill down Robert's spine, his face paling as the gravity of the situation became clear. Before Robert could fully process what he'd heard, the man at the other table noticed the boy's absence. His eyes locked onto Robert's, a mixture of suspicion and barely contained anger evident in his gaze. With deliberate slowness, he rose from his seat, adjusting his expensive jacket as he strode towards them. Robert's mind raced, his instincts screaming at him to protect the child. He positioned himself subtly between the boy and the approaching man, his body language casual, yet unmistakably protective. The air in the restaurant seemed to thicken, the ambient noise fading away as this silent confrontation unfolded. The man reached them, his forced smile doing little to mask the steel in his voice. "Come on, Ethan, we need to go," he said, extending a hand towards the boy. But Ethan, clutching his toy car even tighter, took a step back, seeking refuge behind Robert's reassuring presence. Robert, recognizing the fear in Ethan's eyes, made a split-second decision. With a calm he didn't entirely feel, he placed a gentle hand on the man's shoulder. "Commitments can wait," he said, his voice light but firm. Ethan seemed eager to talk to me about his car. The man's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something dangerous passing across his face before it was quickly masked. "Don't know what you think you're doing," he said, his voice low and controlled, "but this has gone far enough." The threat in his words was unmistakable, hanging in the air between them. Ethan, his voice trembling but determined, finally spoke up. "I don't want to go," he said, his small frame still half hidden behind Robert. "Please, can I stay here?" The plaintive note in the child's voice struck a chord in Robert's heart, strengthening his resolve to see this through, whatever the consequences might be. The tension in the restaurant had reached a fever pitch, drawing the attention of other patrons. A waitress, sensing the unfolding drama, approached cautiously. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her eyes darting between the three figures locked in their silent standoff. Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, Robert discreetly pulled out his phone and sent an emergency message. The man noticed, his composure slipping for a moment before he regained control. "I suggest you don't meddle where you're not wanted," he hissed, stepping closer to Robert. Time seemed to stretch, each second feeling like an eternity as they stood frozen in this tableau. Robert's mind raced, trying to find a way to diffuse the situation without putting Ethan at risk. He could feel the boy trembling behind him, a stark reminder of what was at stake. Just as it seemed the tension would snap, the distant wail of sirens cut through the air. The man's face contorted in fury for a split second before smoothing into a mask of calm. Robert felt a surge of relief, knowing help was on the way, but he remained vigilant, aware that the most dangerous moment might be yet to come. The sound of sirens grew louder, piercing through the tense atmosphere of the restaurant. The man's composure wavered, his eyes darting towards the exit as he weighed his options. Robert stood his ground, acutely aware of Ethan's small presence behind him, determined to protect the child at all costs. As the police cruiser pulled up outside, its lights painting the interior of the restaurant in flashes of red and blue, the man made one last attempt to regain control. "This is all a misunderstanding," he said, his voice strained with forced calm. "We'll be leaving now." But before he could make a move, two uniformed officers entered the restaurant, their presence immediately commanding attention. Officer Ramirez, a seasoned veteran with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, approached the group. "Is everything okay here?" he asked his partner, Officer Vega, flanking him with a watchful gaze. The man was quick to respond, his words rushing out in a smooth, practiced manner. "Everything is fine, officers. Just a little misunderstanding. I was about to leave with my son." But Robert, sensing the crucial moment, interjected, "Officers, I think you should hear what the boy has to say." A hush fell over the restaurant as all eyes turned to Ethan. The boy, emboldened by Robert's protective presence and the arrival of the police, found his voice. In a whisper that seemed to echo in the silence, he said, "He hurt my mom, and he said no one can help us." The impact of Ethan's words was immediate and profound. The man's facade cracked, a flash of panic crossing his face before he schooled his features back into a mask of indignation. "This is ridiculous," he scoffed, attempting to push past the officers. "He's a child. He's making things up." Officer Vega, her intuition honed by years on the force, knelt to Ethan's level. Her voice was gentle, but firm as she asked, "Ethan, do you know where your mom is now?" The boy's response sent a chill through everyone within earshot. "She can't get up. He told me no one would believe me." Robert, his heart breaking for the young boy, placed a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. "We believe you," he said softly, his words carrying the weight of a promise. The atmosphere in the restaurant had shifted, the truth of Ethan's situation dawning on everyone present. Officer Ramirez, recognizing the gravity of the situation, turned to the man with a steely gaze. "Sir, we have enough cause for an investigation. You need to come with us." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication and the promise of consequences. The man's composure finally shattered completely. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," he snarled, his true nature breaking through the carefully constructed facade. He turned to leave, but Officer Vega was quicker, her trained reflexes allowing her to grab his arm and secure handcuffs around his wrists. As he was led away, the man continued to mutter threats and denials, but his words fell on deaf ears. The focus had shifted entirely to Ethan, who stood trembling but brave, his small hand still clutching Robert's. "Can you come with me?" the boy asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "To help my mom?" Without hesitation, Robert nodded. "Let's go," he said, his voice filled with determination. As they prepared to leave, the atmosphere in the restaurant had transformed. What had begun as a quiet Sunday afternoon had become a moment of profound change, the first step on a journey that would alter lives forever. The police cruiser sped through the streets of Los Angeles, its siren cutting through the usual traffic noise. Inside, Robert sat with Ethan, offering quiet words of reassurance as the boy directed the officers to his home. The tension in the vehicle was palpable, each second feeling like an eternity. As they arrived at the modest house, an eerie silence enveloped them. The front door stood slightly ajar, a silent testament to the disturbance within. The officers approached cautiously, weapons drawn, while Robert held Ethan back, shielding the boy from whatever they might find inside. The interior of the house told a harrowing story. Overturned furniture and shattered objects painted a picture of struggle and violence. And there, in the middle of the chaos, lay Ethan's mother, Sarah, unconscious but mercifully alive. The small wound on her head spoke volumes about the ordeal she had endured. As paramedics rushed in, summoned by the officer's urgent call, Robert felt a mix of relief and anger wash over him. Relief that Sarah was alive, and anger at the man who had caused such pain and fear. He looked down at Ethan, whose eyes were fixed on his mother, and silently vowed to see this through to the end. At the hospital, the soft beep of monitors and the hushed voices of medical staff created a cocoon of safety around Sarah's bed. Ethan sat beside her, his small hand holding hers, while Robert stood nearby, a quiet guardian ensuring their comfort and security. As dawn's first light seeped through the windows, the doctor arrived with news that sent a wave of relief through the room. Sarah would make a full recovery. The heavy weight of fear that had settled on Ethan's shoulders seemed to lift, and he turned to Robert with a shy, grateful smile. In that moment, as he looked at the boy's hopeful face, Robert felt a profound shift within himself. This chance encounter had evolved into something far more significant, a calling that resonated deep in his soul. He knew that his involvement wouldn't end here, that he had a responsibility to ensure Ethan and Sarah's safety and well-being. As Sarah began to stir, her eyes fluttering open to meet her son's loving gaze, Robert stepped back to give them privacy. But even as he did, he began formulating plans, determined to use his resources and influence to make a lasting difference in their lives and the lives of others like them. In the days that followed, as Sarah regained her strength and Ethan's spirits lifted, the full extent of their ordeal came to light. Officer Vega had discovered a notebook in the man's abandoned bag, detailing his twisted plans to take Ethan out of state. The charges against him now included abuse and attempted kidnapping. Robert, true to his word, remained a constant presence, ensuring that Sarah and Ethan had all the support they needed. He used his connections to secure them the best legal representation and counseling services, determined to help them rebuild their lives on a foundation of safety and hope. As Sarah prepared to be discharged, she turned to Robert, her eyes brimming with tears of gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved our lives." Robert, ever humble, smiled warmly. "I was just in the right place at the right time," he replied. "The real hero here is Ethan. He had the courage to ask for help." Ethan, standing nearby, beamed with quiet pride at Robert's words. In his hands, he held his toy car, now repaired by Robert as a symbol of restoration and new beginnings. The small gesture spoke volumes about the bond that had formed between them, a connection forged in adversity and strengthened by compassion. Inspired by his experience with Ethan and Sarah, Robert felt compelled to take action on a larger scale. He reached out to organizations supporting victims of domestic violence, offering not just financial aid, but also the power of his visibility and influence to raise awareness for their cause. His involvement brought much-needed attention to the issue, sparking conversations and inspiring others to get involved. Robert used his platform to share stories of survivors, always with their permission, highlighting the courage it takes to seek help and the importance of community support. Behind the scenes, Robert continued to stay in touch with Sarah and Ethan. ensuring they had the resources and support they needed to rebuild their lives. He became a quiet but constant presence, a friend they could rely on as they navigated their new reality. As weeks turned into months, the impact of that chance encounter in a Los Angeles McDonald's continued to ripple outward. Lives were changed, not just for Ethan and Sarah, but for countless others who found hope and help through the initiatives Robert had set in motion. Sarah, with the support of therapy and the safety net Robert had helped provide, began to rediscover her strength and independence. She found a new job, one that allowed her to provide for Ethan, while also giving her a sense of purpose and accomplishment. Ethan, too, showed remarkable resilience. With the help of counseling and the unwavering support of his mother and Robert, he began to heal from the trauma he had experienced. His smile, once rare and hesitant, became a frequent sight, lighting up the room and warming the hearts of those around him. Robert, for his part, found that his involvement with Ethan and Sarah had profoundly changed him. The experience had opened his eyes to a world of need he had previously only glimpsed, igniting a passion for using his influence to make a tangible difference in people's lives. As he watched Sarah and Ethan flourish, Robert felt a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose. He realized that true heroism wasn't about donning a superhero suit, but about reaching out a hand to those in need, about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult or inconvenient. Months after that fateful day, a special ceremony was organized by the local police department. Ethan was to be honored as a young hero, his bravery in speaking up celebrated as an inspiration to others. The event drew attention from local media, shining a light on the importance of community vigilance and support. As Ethan stood on the stage, small but proud in his new suit, Robert watched from the audience, his heart swelling with pride. The boy who had once whispered his plea for help in a crowded restaurant now stood tall, a symbol of resilience and courage. After the ceremony, Ethan approached Robert with a shy smile, holding out a piece of paper. It was a drawing, lovingly crafted in bright colors, depicting Ethan and Robert holding hands. Above the figures, in careful, childish script, were the words, "My hero." Robert knelt beside Ethan, taking the drawing with reverence. "You're the real hero, buddy," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Asking for help takes more courage than anything else." The moment was captured by nearby cameras, a powerful image of friendship and mentorship that would inspire many. As the ceremony wound down, Sarah joined Robert and Ethan, her eyes shining with pride and gratitude. The three of them stood together, a small family unit forged in adversity and strengthened by compassion. Robert looked at them, marveling at the journey that had brought them to this point. "What happens now?" Ethan asked, looking up at Robert with trust and admiration. Robert smiled, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. "Now," he said, "we keep moving forward. We keep helping others, just like you helped yourself and your mom by being brave." Sarah nodded, her voice soft but strong as she added, "And we remember that heroes come in all sizes. Sometimes they're famous actors, and sometimes they're little boys with big hearts." Ethan beamed at his mother's words, standing a little taller. As they left the ceremony together, stepping out into the warm Los Angeles sunshine, there was a sense of hope and possibility in the air. Their story wasn't ending, it was just beginning. The bonds they had formed, the lessons they had learned, and the impact they had made would continue to ripple outward, touching lives in ways they could never have imagined.